You're listening to A Bit Later, a midlife stand-up podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ziegler, and I'm sitting down with comedians from across the country to find out why they are pursuing stand-up comedy and what they are learning about themselves at this stage in their lives. Today's guest is Ashley Nimmo. Ashley is a comic who is originally from the Eastern Shore and now lives in Baltimore, Maryland. She is a regular at the weekly showcases at the Port Comedy Club and has performed at venues across the DMV such as cult classic Brewery and Dickens Parlour Theater. She enjoys sharing her unique humor from the perspective of a 6'5" woman. When she isn't dodging doorways and questions about basketball, the answer is no. She enjoys skiing and playing Animal Crossing. Let's jump into the convo with Ashley Nimmo. How are you?
I said, welcome to you. Not what you're supposed to say. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us. Coming from Maryland, but I'm not sure which part. Where are you?
From
you're in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So Magooby's territory, or that's a little further south, maybe.
Yeah, so Magooby's is nearby, but I've done the talent show at Magooby's, and I did it last year, and I didn't place, so I haven't haven't performed at Magooby's yet.
Okay. I've only been there for one show in the past to support a friend, and that was a long time ago. I just hear the name all the time. So as I mentioned, this is a comedy podcast about those of us that started a bit later in stand-up. So can you tell me your backstory and like what brought you to the stage?
Sure. So I've always loved comedy, kind of. I mean, nobody on a podcast can tell this, probably, but I'm 6'5", I'm 6 feet 5 inches tall. So it's very tall for a woman. It's very tall for anyone, quite frankly. But and I'm that tall due to Marfan syndrome, which is a inherited genetic disorder. And so I think that kind of forces you to develop a thicker skin just because you look different from other people and people say stuff to you. And I was like, I can't just be sad all the time about this. I've got to have witty comebacks to when people ask me how tall I am, you know? So I think that kind of was the genesis of being interested in comedy. And my mom actually made me do public speaking when I was younger. I won the state championship 4-H public speaking contest when I was 10.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. But I think that was a great hobby for her to force me to do, because it's a lot better than like playing baseball or something. Because it really gets you used to speaking in front of people, which is one of a great fear that most people have.
That's right.
So then I got into sketch comedy in 2018. Which was unfortunately shortly after my mother passed away. I was kind of like, oh, I need to do something, and I got into sketch comedy, but I still felt like sketch is great because it's a group, but it can also be difficult because it's a group. And I just kind of wanted to branch out on my own. This is the fourth time that I tried to do stand up. I tried when I was 21, when I was like 27, when I was 33 or something like that. And when I was 41, I just got this gut feeling that was like, I have to do stand up again and I have to commit to it. And I actually took a class, which is the same class that I took 20 something years ago. And everyone in the class was it felt like Billy Madison. They were all kind of like, you know this stuff already. Like, why are you here? Why are you back in first grade? You're too old for this. But it was really good to do that because that gave me like a solid 5-minute set that I felt confident with. And so having that, then I felt good going into the open mics in Baltimore because I was like, okay, I know that I've got something decent here. And then I kind of use that 5-minute set as an anchor, and I would, do 2 of my bits and add a new one on. And sometimes a new one wouldn't do well, but I always have the solid bits in there that I knew worked. So I wouldn't, the reasons I quit before were that I'd go up and bomb and I would just be like, oh, I'm horrible. I'm not meant to do this, and this time around, I was determined to not bomb as much, which I think everyone does. And sometimes I think bombing is good because it means you're doing you're doing a bit that's maybe a bit controversial or putting yourself out there more. But yeah, I
You're trying, you're taking
yes,
risks, and that's the
yes.
big part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes yeah, but I didn't want to bomb because my material was just straight up bad, which is what had happened before. And knock on wood, that has not happened since. So
That's great. Have you do you write every day?
no, I
I don't. I'm just asking.
I know you're supposed to. Probably do, but by which I mean I take notes in my notes app about something stupid that I saw. I'll be like,
Right.
but it'll be something so generic. It'll be like bird with a hat, and then I'll go back and read it, and I'll be like, what was I talking? Stop. I have no clue what I was talking about. But yeah, I have, my notes app is like 40 pages long or something. But most of the stuff doesn't make any sense. So
I hear you. I was doing that before. So this is kind of like I'll call it my second go around with stand up. Feel like there's an aspect to beyond just writing of observing the world more. I feel like you become kind of stuck in a situation where maybe your career or life is just like kind of you're trying to find your identity. And maybe that's what this whole midlife thing is about. I know 40 is like young to call it midlife, but I'm interviewing people that started 35 and up. But I do think there's something to that I'm trying to figure out by hearing other people's and other comics' perspectives there.
yeah, yeah. And I do think that, you do bring it up like, oh, 40 seems young for midlife, but for comics that it is older to start.
I
There's so
agree.
many comedians. I'm on the stand-up subreddit a lot, and they constantly are like, oh, if you don't get started when you're like a fetus, then you're doomed. You're never gonna make it. But it seems like they're always joking about that. But like there's some truth to that, a lot of people do get started really young. So
They do, but the outpouring of people that I got from the subreddit, I posted about this, right? I don't know if
yeah,
that's how we connected or if we just
yes,
connected on Instagram. Okay, so I've gotten at least like 30 responses. I know it's hard to like corral
really.
comics up. Yeah. And um it's interesting because I want to hear people's perspectives. And then like on the Philly scene, I see people that I knew like a decade ago that are still doing it, still doing
Yes.
showcases, doing open mics. And then you have people that have like launched into the stratosphere of stardom from 10 years ago. So that's they say, right? It takes like at least 10 years to become a good comic. I think though at 40, being comfortable having the public speaking experience, for you, for me also, I mean, we could talk about careers and things like that too, but I think that helps with confidence, if nothing else. Like you're on your own for material, right? You could talk to other comics about how to make things better, but bringing that confidence to the stage is something that probably does come with age. And it's not a cocky kind of confidence that you have at 25, probably,
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. It's like a confidence with some substance behind it that where
for
you
sure.
feel a little bit like, oh, I know something about the world, even though I personally don't. But it gives me the veneer of knowing something about the world.
So let's talk about like your start here or this, restart in comedy. When was your first open mic at 41?
So I think that it was at a place called I'm trying to think. I did one at this place called Tryout Comedy where they have this giant, like super fluorescent light that shines right in your face the whole time. And it's a good open mic, but I was just like, I'm so blind, I can't see anyone. So I was like, do I really want to do this? But it was good because I took, like I said, I took a class and I went with like 5 or 6 people from my class and we all like supported each other. And then I think getting back into the Baltimore scene, I went to Max's Tap House, which is so typical for an open mic because it's basically just a bar that has a side room and you just perform in front of like the drunk people who wander in and are like, what's going on in here? And you're just like, I'm trying to do stand-up comedy. And they're like, all right, tell me a joke. And you're just like, so it's definitely like a very there's definitely open mics that are some of them are like, oh, you get to do it on a real stage in front of a real audience, but most of them are like it's at a bar and there's 5 people and they're all super inebriated. So good luck.
Um, Years ago, when you said about the bars, the typical drunk audience, I have a friend who did stand up and he's still doing it. And years ago, he started at like 27 and he said you have to perform in the bars. And another comic told me that what happens there is people become jealous of the laughter that you are getting. And that was such a poetic way to put it. He's like, they're jealous of the laughs. That's how you get the room to quiet down and get everybody focused. I was like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that would be great. If I don't know if I've ever achieved that at Max's specifically, but like one of these days I'll actually, but you're right. It's almost like you've got to do those tough rooms, like the ones where everyone's super friendly and laughs at everything. You don't learn anything from that. You learn from when you get up there and everyone just stares at you and like doesn't really laugh the whole time. Like, okay, what can I fix?
Yeah, that's the benefit of it, of taking the risks, like you said earlier. Um, so you started early public speaking classes. So one of the questions I normally have for people, like, was comedy your first time on stage? Obviously not. You were doing 4-H. Was it like a debate club or just you're giving speeches?
It was just speeches about the most, and like my mom would pick out my subject matter. Like my speech that I won the state contest with was about Helen Keller, just about her life. I don't know, my mom was a huge Helen Keller fan, and now there's all these conspiracy theories that Helen Keller like didn't actually do anything, and her teachers did everything for her. That she wasn't actually talented or whatever. So I'm like, well, my mom think about that, but yeah, it's so yeah, no, not my first time on stage, and then I did theater in high school and middle school. So
Okay. Were you both writing and performing, or were you, or just primarily acting in theater?
just acting, but I don't know, I just feel like writing is my true love. I feel like
Hmm.
I'm not a good actor or actress, and to be honest with you, the feedback that I get from stand up is people are like, your material's good, your delivery is not good. So I feel like
Interesting.
I'm just not a good, and I feel comfortable up there, but I think sometimes that I have like a monotone. But it's not, you can have like a charming monotone. Some comedians lean into it, but mine's not enough of a, I don't know. It's like in some gray area where it's not enough of a thing for me to like market it, but
Oh, you don't seem monotone here, and you're getting booked though, right? I saw that
Yeah,
you're on.
yeah. I actually next week or this week I have a show. I have 4 shows from Friday to Friday. I have a Friday night, then a Tuesday night, then a Wednesday night, then a Friday night. So yeah, I must be doing something. Okay.
Definitely, definitely. I worry about that too. I worry about two things: coming off as monotone, and then sometimes, like, even though I've like kind of gotten out of it, I don't want to sound like I'm from Philly. If that sounds interesting, like,
Aw.
no, there's stereotypes around things, and I'm from like a more of a blue collar neighborhood. It's probably like a terrible way to put it, but I don't know. There's something there that sticks with me. It's like I want to talk about it and joke about it, but also want it to like not fit the character that I or who I am. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah.
That's interesting. It makes you feel any better. I'm a speech language pathologist, and I didn't really pick up on an accent. So
Right. I've worked at it. Yeah. Since
there
people
you
have been
go.
saying that for since like college. And you don't have the Baltimore accent, which is very similar to Philly.
No, and you know what? I'm from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and literally, I grew up like Eastern Shore is super rural. I grew up on a dirt
Okay.
path away from my cousins, and they have like a fairly, not all of them, but some pretty thick Eastern Shore, Eastern Shore talk, talk like this kind of thing.
Oh, really?
Yes, and it's like I don't have it, so it's interesting to me. But yeah.
All right. That's yeah, it's just saying things that we have, don't have, hide, whatever. Um, is right now. Oh no, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I do want to ask about this. Is there an acting role from high school that sticks out to you that you really enjoyed and or really hated?
Okay, so my favorite was, again, I feel like I'm talking about my mom a whole lot, but
That's
so
okay.
when they were putting on Jesus Christ Superstar at my high school, and I was a freshman, and I can't sing, but it's a musical. My mom was like, "You're never gonna." She was honest. She was like, "You're never gonna get cast as the ingenue. Like you're too tall. You're not cute enough or whatever." But she was like the part of Herod. She's like, I bet, because she's like, you can do camp. She's like, I bet if you audition for that you would have a chance, because with she was like, your height is just so different. And I got it. And I was like the only freshman who had a solo. And like I said, I can't sing. Sang the whole thing, but people liked it because they thought I had such a presence. And I don't know if you're familiar with the musical, but it's usually, Herod is usually portrayed by like a stereotypically gay man,
I
basically.
didn't know that. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my mom was just kind of like, oh, she was like, just lean into doing something different, because she was like, you're not going to be Mary Magdalene. I was like, all right, I'll be this dude in the musical who, condemns Jesus or whatever. But it was honestly really fun, and it was just an interesting experience to, have a solo as a freshman who couldn't sing, and it was something. So
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I grew up in Catholic school, so I remember seeing Jesus Christ Superstar once, but like every year we would have to like put on the Passion of the Christ, which was a
yeah,
little more, yeah. So that was a little heavier. No, not a lot of singing and dancing, but that's pretty funny. I think I've seen Jesus Christ Superstar one time. I didn't know that about Herod. So
yeah.
um that's really cool though. I mean, and learning your presence there is important because I feel like that's a compliment that people will give you a lot about like I think sometimes it feels like 80% of what we're doing in stand up is the confidence and the presence. And just like, I think it was Jim Florentine said, this isn't like art, it's a party trick of the way the cadence of our voice and just drawing people in. And I think sometimes it works. Like, I'll say something, I'm like, is that even that funny to me? But the delivery maybe makes sense.
Yes, yeah. And I had my friends came and saw me, and they were like, again, they were like, your jokes were better than other people's, but other people's confidence and delivery was better than yours, and it made them funnier, basically. And I read something in I have like a million comedy books, but it said that the closest art to comedy should be a magic show. That basically what you do is it's like you build up the trick, which is like building up the joke, with the setup, build up, and then it's a quick unequivocal punchline, just like with magic. You got the rabbit in the hat, you talk, you build it up, and then boom, rabbit in the hat. There's no question about what's going on. It's the same thing with like the setup and punchline. You build up the setup, and then the punchline's quick and to the point and unequivocal. So
That's a really good analogy. I never thought of that. I get highfalutin and say, "Oh, stand-up's like jazz and whatever." But I mean, in a way, it can be. But I think there's less improvisation than people realize. I was just speaking with another comedian, and he said that growing up, he thought that comics just got up there unprepared and were just funny, just doing that every night. Yeah, I said adults think that too. When I talk to people, they're
yeah,
like,
yeah,
they're like, I heard him do that on TV. I'm like, yeah, that's his thing. That's his act. He's not out here
yeah. He
doing a
doesn't
new
just
act.
get up.
Yeah, yeah. So it's yeah, the preparation is always important there. I'm sorry that I keep going to my notes too. We kind of talked a little bit about the Baltimore scene, touched on age and stuff like that. So what is the scene like people wise, and how do you feel sometimes like being an older comic in that scene? I'm sorry to say it that way, but
Oh.
yeah.
I would say the demographic wise in Baltimore, it's mostly, I mean, like in all comedy, mostly males who are probably like 25 to 33, I would guess is kind of the bulk. Probably mostly white, but Baltimore's a primarily Black city. So there's also a large number of African American comics. But yeah, I think that I have found it to be, just in my experience, to be everyone's been super welcoming, or like for 99% of the time, that everyone, I don't know, it feels like age doesn't matter, because there's some other older comedians. I'm not the only person who's in their 40s. There's comedians in their 50s or 60s. And it's more kind of like we're all here for comedy, and that's what matters. I wouldn't necessarily hang out with a bunch of dudes in their late 20s, right? That would I'm fact, I'm not trying to like relive my youth and be like, oh, hey, fellow kids, what are you guys doing on, threads or whatever? I don't know. But like it doesn't, it feels fine when we all hang out, because it's just like we're focused on comedy. And yet demographic wise, there's not that many women. I do regular showcases at the Port, which is a comedy club here. And frequently, it'll be like 8 or 9, 10 comics, and I'll very frequently be the only female comic in that set.
That kind of mirrors the Philly scene and everything that you just said. I mean, Philly's a primarily black city. It's mostly white comedy scene, but not fully. There are a lot of African American comics. But
Yeah.
um, one of the questions that I'm asking female comics is like, as a woman in on the open mic scene and the comedy scene, is it are there rooms that are specifically that are uncomfortable And like, how do you deal with that? How is it addressed? Do the women know about it? I'm throwing a lot of questions at you, but what is your experience there as a woman in comedy?
Really, I'm totally fine with anything. And haven't found, I've heard horror stories, right? Especially, I've seen stuff on Reddit or on Instagram or what have you, from women in like LA or New York who have like absolutely horrible things happen. And again, I don't know if it's because I'm older or just I'm super tall, so I'm intimidating, so nobody's gonna like mess with me or what have you. But I haven't found anything that I'd say is overtly or even subtly unfriendly to women. I do think that, like, when I first started, it was tough because I would frequently be the only female at the open mic. And I did find everyone to be a little bit not unfriendly, but not super friendly. But
Mm,
now, well, the thing is, now I understand why people aren't super friendly because so many people try comedy and they try it for like 2 weeks or a month or 2 months and then they quit.
right.
I think that people kind of aren't friendly at first because they don't want to invest in somebody who's not going to be around. Do you know what I mean? I think that's what at first I was like, oh, it's because I'm a woman and they don't want me there. And now I'm realizing that I think, and I don't think this is unique to Baltimore. I think this is anywhere. I think that a lot of times people aren't super friendly to someone who's totally new because they want you to prove yourself. They want to see that you're dedicated to this and you're going to stick around. And now I think that I'm friends with a lot of people and I think they're super nice to me. And, I haven't had any rooms where I felt, um, like as a female that I wasn't welcome, at least from the standpoint of like the people who run the mic. I mean, it is intimidating to go to a place that is all men and you're the only woman because it feels like you don't belong. It feels like you are like crashing boys' night out or something. Like they all want to talk about certain things and they can't because you're there. And especially being older, you feel like you're like their weird aunt or their mom or something. So you feel extra like, oh, I shouldn't be here. But that kind of stuff I realized was mostly in my head, that they don't really, that once people saw that I was serious about stand up and I went to the mics regularly and started getting booked, then it was like, okay, you're part of the group. So
Yeah, that makes sense. That's and what you said a few things there that I'm going to start with the being the only woman in the space of with men. It's kind of funny because my work life has always been I'm like one of the only men with a bunch of women, right?
yeah,
So that's the only way I can really relate to that feeling. But coming into like an open mic space, I think I haven't seen this in Philly, but I asked that question because another comic who is much older than us, she's probably 60, something she said a lot of rooms are not friendly to women. I haven't experienced that yet. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen like aggressive misogynistic comedy. I mean, you see it from like a few guys maybe, but it's not, I don't think it's the norm. And the Philly scene is a little more blended there. So no, I appreciate you sharing that because I've been like curious about it of like what's
yeah.
that
And again,
experience?
it's something that I feel like I haven't really experienced. But again, I think that I don't want to discount other women's experiences if, that is something that it could be totally different in other places, or it could be, like I said, it could be unique to me that I'm not experiencing it because I'm, so some aspect of me makes people not friend.
Well,
I don't know.
I think it's addressed like anytime there's a female comic comes up, they'll usually say like, "Oh, like the second female comic here, and you're putting us all at the end." Like you're always making some joke. And like years ago, I ran a mic and I put the one female comic first. I thought I was being polite, and she was like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "I'm the only woman here, and I have to like lead off." Like, but I mean, comics are going to be comics and just joke about whatever we put up there, but. I'm glad to hear that the Baltimore scene is friendly in that way. I think in terms of what you said about new people too, that's what you it started with. It's I like I'm trying to prove myself now too, and I believe exactly what you said. We're on the same page there because some people are like very good, have like their other projects that may be building a following because of their comedy and things like that. You don't want to feel like you're trying to like be like latch onto them or anything like that. Also, people don't want to necessarily speak to comics that aren't doing consistently well. And again, like proving yourself too. It depends. I think it's all individual. So I'm slightly friendly with a few people, but still working. I'm only 4 months in, so
Oh,
proving
okay. So
in
yeah,
terms of performing. In terms of
yeah.
performing, yeah. Like the few people that I know from the past, I'm all cool with. They're kind of like the co-signers. But in terms of new people, I'm like, yeah, I have to get up there and get laughs. And that's starting to work now at this point. So
Yeah, yeah, but it's so gratifying when it does because you get up and do open mic after open mic and it's mediocre and you're like because it's mostly comics watching and you're like, oh, why am I doing this? But then once you start getting more laughs and feel like you're getting noticed, and for me, I felt like everything kind of turned for me when the first like book show I had because I felt like everyone knew about it. I felt like so many people were coming up to me, even people I hadn't seen in a while, and they were like, I heard you got booked at this show, and it made me feel so special. I was like, oh, I did.
that is
Like
actually
I'm
one of my
a
questions.
I'm a comic now. What?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's sorry, that was actually one of my questions. How does it feel to be your first paid gig? So that's really good to know. And that
Yeah,
when
it
did
was
that happen?
amazing. I had like so many people come because it was actually like close to my hometown, and it was like one of the best nights of my life. It was so great.
That's great. That's it's really how long was your set? How long is your like showcase set right now?
That one was 10 minutes actually. Yeah, so it was 10 minutes long. And at this point, I can probably do like 15 to 20. If you put a gun to my head, I could probably do 30, but it would be a horrible 30. Like not something that anyone would pay money to come and see. So
What's your process like building up to that, like even 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes that you're working on? How do you get
yeah,
that?
it's just been like building up gradually, like building up the five. I have a Google Doc called Comedy Graveyard, which is just like every bit that I've ever done, and I just keep them there. And then I just kind of, when as long as something works, I go by like the rule of three. Rule of three is so important in comedy for so many things. But if I do a bit 3 times and it does well, then I'm like, okay, that's in my like permanent repertoire. And then, yeah, I just kind of come up with random ideas. I'll either be reading something or overhear something, or just like you said, it's like the thing I love about comedy and that I love about other comics is that I feel like we all kind of think the same. There's like the simpatico that where you just have this hyper observation of the world in a way that I think some other people don't necessarily look at the world that way, right? Where you kind of have to really be like, well, wait, you can't just like be spoon fed the world. You're like, wait a minute, why do we do this? Why, and I can't think of anything on top of my head right now, of course. Why do we do X, Y, Z? And what's weird about the fact that we do that rather than just doing the status quo and not thinking about it?
Right. I agree with you. Yeah, it is hard also in these interviews to think of it like a topic right off
Yeah,
and
yeah,
say
I
like
know. I'm
why.
like, oh, let me tell about the thing that I think of all the time, and I'm like, I can't think of anything. So,
Before I ask a question about stand up, as a writer, is there anything you're working on that's not stand up? You said you always enjoyed writing.
yes, I do. But for right now, I feel like I've been so hyper focused on stand up that I just haven't tried to write books in the past, but I never was able to. And I feel like I know it's such a cliche to be like, oh, I have ADHD, but I've never been diagnosed, but I diagnosed myself, but like kind of. And I feel like stand up, I can do, a bit is like a minute long, and I can do that. Like, I don't think I can do War and Peace. I
Hmm.
don't think that I have I'm a sprinter, not a marathon runner.
Oh, well, hey, yeah. Why are women diagnosed with ADHD later in life, right? We don't,
Yeah.
that's the question to ask. You sounded so organized about your notes and things. That's why I was curious about that because that's a process I really need to work on. Like, and I would like to, well, get a book published but I realize like that writing that I've done, it seems so much more serious than what I'm doing with I mean comedy, of course, but you can be poignant and funny at the same time. And then I read my writing, I'm like, people would not expect me to be doing stand up with this heavy kind of stuff that I'm writing about. But it's also a few years ago, maybe perspective on the world's a little different. But Yeah.
But I do think that a lot of times that stand-ups are not necessarily depressed, but can be kind of serious seeming people. And that's sort of where the need to be funny comes from. For me, I'll be totally honest that I don't know if I'd use the term depressed, but I do kind of think maybe a pessimist.
Mm.
And I feel like stand-up helps me cope with that because it's just sort of like be silly about everything rather than being sad about it. And sometimes I'll do that. I'll be sad about something and I will write about it rather than mope. I actually, so on Reddit, there was a subreddit called Divorced Birds, and I had just gone through a breakup. I've never been divorced. I've never been married. So this is just a regular breakup. But I was like, I was like, I could write. And it's basically where you put a picture of a bird and then you write a caption about its divorce. And I was like, I could do this. And I started like obsessively every day writing these captions for these birds. And it really took off. I got a bunch of like awards on Reddit. I would have people who would like uh call my name on Reddit, like highlight my name and be like, oh, here's a picture of a bird, you should write a caption for it or whatever. And that became like a coping mechanism for me with that breakup, to write these stupid made up pretend divorce stories about these random birds. And I was like, this is much cheaper than therapy. So
It's- Everything you said resonates with me. Just even the point of like not being married, but basically being divorced once, and then like
yeah.
yeah, it always and I constantly like gravitate toward comedy. Like I think you need something to like light you up and like you said, take away that seriousness or not even making light of your own situation, but making light of the world as a whole is kind of like what we're really trying to do with stand up.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And I also think there's I don't know how much you do reading about like sociology, but there's a lot of talk about the loss of third spaces, or the loss
Yeah.
of a place to go that isn't home or work. And that to me, that's what the open mics are as well. They've really become a social thing now that I know so many people that it's like, yeah, it's a place to hang out with people. And so many people talk about, oh, you can't make any friends past your 30s. It's so difficult, so hard to make friends as an adult. And I think that doing something like stand up, a hobby that I love, that it has helped me make new friends. And, yeah, going to an open mic does make me happy usually.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm with
Usually.
you there. Yeah, and it's like we all say that, especially for men. It's a kind of over the age of 30 is when it really starts to become difficult to make schedules. We traditionally rely on, women in our lives to like schedule those, make those friendships happen. But also if you're not doing something, if you're not actively joining something, and I don't want to play softball or join a dart league or whatever, I certainly don't want to hang out in a bar if I'm not doing stand up. So it's kind of yeah, you're right, that third space aspect. I always hear it in the context of teenagers and children of third spaces. So I didn't even think about it for like our generation, but that makes total
Yeah, but
sense.
adults, I think there used to be like the Elks Club or the
Hmm.
Moose or whatever. There's like a million named after animals with antlers that are for old guys to sit around and like get away from their wives, basically. But
That would be an unwelcome room for you, most likely.
yes,
Yeah.
that would be yes. I don't think I would want to go there. But yeah, it's something where we don't have that as much. I can't think of a social club that exists for people our age that's just like, hey, just come and hang out, and maybe something religious, but not just a secular thing.
Yeah. Well, religion's on the rise again, apparently among younger people. I don't know if you saw that in the New York Times. That like Gen Z is going back to church, but it's weird. And
I'm
yeah,
I'm
that's
a caveat. I'm an atheist, so I'm good for people who are religious, but that's not me.
no, I hear you. I grew up Catholic, so I'm fairly agnostic at this point.
Yes, I grew up. I know the Catholic to agnostic atheist pipeline. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, it's like granola mom to make America healthy or whatever that is. It's the same.
Yes, there's like horse. Well, that wouldn't be a good example, but horseshoe theory, where like you have like far right people and far left people would have like a similar viewpoint because they're both so far.
I have been saying that for such a long time. I believe that. I think I heard another comic. So I think Sam Talent said that once, and I was just like, yeah, that's true. It's like that makes sense.
Sam Talent is 6'5". He's
He
very
is.
tall.
He's a big dog. He's
Yeah.
yeah. I brought him up because literally on the last podcast I was talking about we were talking. the comic I was interviewing, Rob Cunningham, said that he said he's just someone to behold, like watching do stand up, like switching from prepared material to crowd work. And also he's such a presence, just like, but he's like, he's so gentle, it seems as well.
Yeah, that's what I've heard about him. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I do think that the height can be an advantage on stage because it is something that people pay attention to.
Yeah.
They do. I had someone tell me when I was doing improv that he was like, "Oh, your height is such a gift to watch," because he was like, "It's just mesmerizing." And I'm like, "Okay, I don't quite know what that means, but thanks."
So with between improv and stand up, I know you said you only did it for like a minute and then got into stand up. Why, like, what are some of the things you see that are so different there that you prefer about stand up, like to improv?
So I think that there's like three basic forms of comedy, right? There's improv, there's sketch, and then there's stand up. And
Mhm.
improv is kind of like all group work, right? You're really not supposed to stand up in the crowd. Which I mean, obviously that annoys me. I want to be the star. No, just
Well, yeah,
um,
we all do. I
yes,
stand up pretty
yes, I
solo.
think
Yeah.
exactly. So I think that I don't know. Again, this is gonna like improv people are so. And I talk about them like they're like a separate species or something. I'm like the improv people who live in wherever. No, but the people who do improv are just really really cheerful and optimistic and happy. And I'm like that's just it's not. Like I'm so happy for them that that's how they are, but that's not how I am. So, and then I think sketch is kind of a happy compromise where you do your own writing, but then you write in a group and you perform as a group. So and I think you can also go into do different things than you can with stand up, especially when you're working with like multiple people. So I definitely think that there's some good in sketch. And then but stand up I like because I'm kind of a lone wolf as a person, and stand up lets you be like you determine your own schedule. If I feel like going to 5 open mics a week, I do. If I don't go to any, then that's all on me. I don't have to coordinate with anyone. But then I have found that even though stand up is a bunch of lone wolves, it's like we still coalesce and hang out and work on material together because there is still that community aspect to it, even though it is truly a solo hobby in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And are you someone who enjoys like kind of doing lone wolf stuff outside of stand up? Like you're comfortable going to dinner by yourself, going to a movies. A lot of people go to movies by themselves, but like just doing something alone. Are you
Yes,
comfortable with
I've
that?
I've been to like I think 20 some countries by myself.
That's
So
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, although but again, to me, people are just always like, "Oh my God, that's so sad that you're not really by yourself." I always stay in hostels, or if you go on an excursion, you meet people there, and then you're like, "Oh, you guys want to hang out later?" And actually, so this past summer, I traveled in Europe, and I did stand up while I was traveling. I just
Oh, what's
did
that like? Oh, I'm
it
sorry.
was no, it was amazing. So I just did open mics, and I was kind of still new to stand up then, so I didn't have enough like clout to get a book show, but just open mics. But I did two in Warsaw, Poland, one in Vilnius, Lithuania, one in Riga, Latvia, and then one in Tallinn, Estonia. And it was amazing. It was just so much fun, but it was interesting because the only like English speaking open mics were the ones in Warsaw and Poland. Warsaw is a pretty big city. The ones in Lithuania and Latvia and Tallinn and Estonia were all, I would be like the only or one of like two English speakers. Everyone understands English pretty well, but
Okay.
everyone else was speaking in their native language. So I would be watching the other comics to be polite, but it's funny because they'll throw out English words. They'll be like pumpkin or something, and you just kind of have to guess, like what are they talking?
Wow,
Yeah. So
that's really
it's
cool.
interesting to see. I have a joke that uses an American nursery rhyme that does really well here, and it totally went over everyone's head every single time. And it was just weird to me to have that joke that is so consistent die every time I told it to a European audience. They didn't understand the context. So they laughed because they could tell that it was a joke, but you could tell that they didn't understand it.
Huh. Is it something that gets lost in like the, well, as a speech pathologist, is it something that gets lost in like the cadence or rhythm of your voice? Is it just lost in translation because of the language more so?
No, it's not a language. It's a reference to something that unless they grew up in America, they wouldn't understand.
Got it. Okay. I think
So
I think I heard Bill Burr talk about performing in Warsaw a few years ago, and he said like they love comedy, and he said even if people aren't understanding you speaking English fully, he's like they get what he's like big laughs, like however it
yes,
was working out. Yeah, for him.
very, very enthusiastic. I will say the same was not true for Lithuania. That Lithuania was the worst audience reaction I got. But afterwards, this girl came up to me and she was like, "Oh, you did great." And I was like, "But people laughed." And she said, in Lithuania, we laugh with our heart, not with our mouth." And I was like, "That is the nicest way that someone has told me I'm not funny." BS thing did you just make up? Oh, in Lithuania, we don't laugh out loud. I'm like, come on. No, but she did seem genuine. She was like, yeah, she's like, we just don't laugh out loud a lot, but keep going. You're really good. So I was like, okay, thank you.
I I'm interested to talk to comics who perform internationally. Some people have responded on Reddit. They're like, "Oh, I perform in France. I don't know, or I'm in
Oh wow.
London." I was like, "I want to interview you because it feels like it's such a different way. Number one, of performing that they're used to, and then the reaction of like you expect an American crowd to be raucous, and then this crowd in Lithuania is just kind of like an opera crowd. It sounds like so.
Yes.
Yeah,
They were just kind of I also, again, I would not want to say anything about Lithuania, but if you talk about sexism, I did get the impression that they were sort of like, "We're doing stand-up comedy. Are you sure?" Again, that could have been like the night that I was there. I wouldn't want to make a broad generalization about that, but that they did seem to be kind of put off by me being there in general, more so than I've experienced anywhere else, I would say. But that might have just been a bad night.
maybe just been a bad night. Yeah, yeah. Um, Is there a specific bit you're working on right now that's like really working for you, or you're using that really works for you?
Um, so I've been talking about the most successful recent bit that I've had has talked about getting hit on because of being tall, where I'm just like, because guys give me like weird pickup lines. They'll be like, "Oh, I climbed that tree, I climbed that mountain," and it's sort of is like, do you actually like tall women, or do you just like climbing stuff, And it kind of like, right? It's just sort of silly, but it goes from there. And I think again, it's something like for me, it's sort of difficult with being tall is my main thing, right? That I'm extremely like fourth standard deviation tall. So it's something that's really central to like who I am. But it's not like, oh, if you grew up in a Chinese American household, like there's a community that can relate to your unique experience as being Chinese American or what have you. There's not like there's no culture in the same way to being a tall female. You don't have like a united experience kind of. So I think that, I do talk a lot about being tall, but then I worry that I'm like, this is not relatable to nobody's gonna be like, oh, I get what she's going through when they're like
You
5'6".
you could try to work like corporate gigs through the WNBA or something like that to get that.
But think I'm going to try to do like something with Mark. There's a comedian who has Marfan syndrome, Liam Nelson. He's like 7'2" or something.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But I think I'm like maybe I could do like a Marfan corporate gig or something because again, how many people have Marfan syndrome is 1 in 5,000 people have it. How many people have Marfans and can do comedy competently? It's probably not a ton.
No,
So
that's a really interesting thing to think about because as you were saying this, and I don't mean this in an offensive way, but like for extremely tall people, it's almost like, especially 7 foot and beyond, it's like you're either an athlete or an oddity of some sort, right? It's always discussed in the context of being tall, not who you are as a person, right? It's
yes, and
always
that's
about the
that's how it
physical
feels to me.
aspect.
Yes,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just known as like the tall girl everywhere because that's such a defining trait. And so this is an interesting. I'm a big statistics person. This is interesting to me. That did you know that in the U.S. that 10% of men who are 7 feet or taller play in the NBA
I didn't know that, but I believe
because
it.
there's
Yeah.
so few people who are that tall that it's like if you're that tall, that you just play in the NBA apparently.
It's expected. Well, I had a priest, actually. He was a nice guy when I was in high school. I think he was either 6'5" or 6'7". And he's like, I was terrible at basketball in high school.
Yeah.
He's like, and he's like, all I wanted to do was play baseball, which is what he did. He's like, and all everyone else wanted to do is put me on a basketball court. And the same thing goes for, like, not to go too dark here, there was some other things. Like, I went to a high school that's like pretty famous for basketball in Philadelphia. I'm 5'8". I didn't play. So, but some of the guys that are just like built like athletes are these like gentle guys that are forced to do this thing because of their physical presence. And they just were like very unhappy. It's like, I don't want to play basketball. Just let me be a person, kind of thing. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and that's how I feel. I have such an aversion when, to basketball. I'm like, I will never play. I will never even throw trash away at a trash can trying to get it. I just, yeah, I really have an aversion to it. And I
I
also
love to play.
say, yeah,
I
yeah,
love to
I
play.
know.
It's so funny. It's
We can do a Fridays, so do a switcheroo. I've literally had people, and I have a short bit about this too, tell me that my height is a waste of space. Like,
whoa,
yeah, I'm like, excuse
shitty
you.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they just be like, oh, it's such a waste because they're like, oh, if I was you, I'd be making millions of dollars playing basketball. And I'm like, buddy, the WNBA, they make like 64K a year. Like, you're not, and you retire when you're like 42 or, in your 40s. So like, they're not raking it in unless you're
No.
like Caitlin Clark or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like three. If you can't name the player, they're not making a lot of money. It's like Caitlin Clark and Angel
Yeah.
Reese and maybe
Yes.
one other person. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the only two who I could probably name. So,
Yeah. Well, things seem to be, not that this isn't a sports podcast, but they are bringing a WNBA team to Philly, which is kind of interesting to see. I think Wanda Sykes and her wife are like heavily involved, like investing in it. So yeah, that's been like the talk of the town recently. I don't know when this is happening. Will Smith is investing. It's all kinds of it's like
wow.
I don't know if they're calling it. I want to say it's something sisters, but that might just be the promotional thing. That seems like it wouldn't be a name for the WNBA team, and it can't be Liberty. But I digress. Sorry, that just thought came to me. So what's something that maybe on a bit isn't working for you, and or is just for you and like the comics in the back of the room?
I wrote this bit. This bit is so stupid. And it actually has always done kind of poorly up until this week, and I'll tell you why. I wrote it like maybe 5 or 6 months ago, but it is about why did we stop going to the moon? And my theory is that like we basically like got the ick from the moon and broke up with the moon. And I just kind of like go from there. But it was funny because it as a random standalone idea never did that well. I liked it, so I would do it sometimes, but people were kind of like, eh. But I did on Saturday night, I did it because I was like, oh, with the Artemis 2 thing,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
like fresh in people's minds, and people loved it. I was like, this is the first time that this stupid bit has done well. And then, so I have an idea that I want to work on that I haven't fleshed out. But thinking about how I think dinosaurs are really similar to birds. We're finding out increasingly that like
Yeah.
dinosaurs probably had feathers, and so I'm just thinking of all the dumb stuff that birds do, and I'm like, what because they're always like, oh, what would it be like if the dinosaurs were alive today? And I'm like, what if the dinosaurs were just like a bunch of annoying parakeets or something? And so I haven't really done anything with that, but I'm just thinking, yeah, dinosaurs acting like stupid birds, or like I think geese. Geese are horrible.
Geese are
Well,
horrible.
yeah,
Yeah.
what would it be like if a brontosaurus had the mindset of a goose?
I think that's something everyone would laugh at, and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's
So
good.
I need to work on it. I haven't really fleshed it out, but it was just
Yeah.
sort of a transient. But again, it's like where do you come up with these ideas? It's just a transient thought that I have that I'm like, oh, what if dinosaurs were just super annoying? They're
Right.
not like these big ferocious beasts. They're just like obnoxious. So
I mean, I think you could do a lot with that. It's like building off that them being annoying, and like you'd like rather have them eat you or something like that than just be an annoying bird shitting on you. Um, but is there any topics that you won't touch on or that you don't want to delve into on stage?
no.
Cool.
I I really have I definitely stay, I really don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about anything like super sexual. I think of like my set as being like a burlesque show where
Okay.
I will hint at stuff, but I'm not, you know, doing a money shot in front of everyone,
Yeah,
linguistically speaking. You know what I mean? I kind
I
of try
get
to
it.
keep it like PG-13 or R, not triple X, I guess.
Yeah,
So yeah, I try not to be uh too like blue, I guess. I honestly, I mean, this is going to sound terrible, but I think you can kind of make fun of anything if it's funny and if it's not punching down. I
I
think
agree.
that and when I go to the open mic, sometimes you will hear people where they just say something for shock value, but there's no clever punchline. It's just something that comes across as cruel. And I don't like that. But I feel like I've heard people make really uncomfortable jokes, but it's like as long as it's not punching down and the punchline's good, it's really you're like, oh, that's terrible, but that is good. I have to, I have to give it to
I'm
them.
with you. Yeah, if it's good, it's good. And if I mean, and the thing is, if you're kind of like it's good, it gets a chuckle. It's like we're kind of all having these dark thoughts anyway, right? It's just like externalizing them appropriately. And I watched someone last night not do that appropriately, and the crowd though was great. There's a few young women at the mic that were like, "You can't do that!" Like, and us in the back, all the comics were laughing more at the people. Like, normally, of course, heckling would be annoying, but this guy certainly deserved it. And the host, when he came off, she was like, "All right, let's hear it for the music." She wasn't even like acknowledging. It was rough, but
Yeah.
that's another thing. It's like here we are, we're in a room with like 30 crazy people. You have to give people the opportunity. They're going to say what they want to say. And if, I mean, it's not, he wasn't being, I wouldn't say like he was berating anyone in the crowd what he was talking about was just gross. I don't even want to like say, and
Yeah.
it just wasn't funny. That was the bottom. Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. If it has to be funny. And I think I've really heard people make jokes about almost anything, even really horrible stuff but if it's funny, then it's really hard to say no, kind of. But
True. Well, thanks for sharing that. I know we have the heat wave here on the East Coast. We have a few more minutes of questions. I know we're both
oh yeah,
probably
yeah, no. And then
ready.
and then I'll open my window again,
Yeah, I'll have to do the same.
Yeah, right.
So, uh, who inspires you, and really like what or who makes you laugh?
Do you, do you know that I almost never watch stand-up comedy to laugh anymore? And I've heard other people say that when I watch
Mhm.
stand up, I'm like timing it in my head and I'm just like, okay, how long was their setup? How hard did their punchline hit? How was their tag? How did they do a good callback? I'm analyzing it when I watch it. I literally do not watch stand up to laugh, essentially. So I watch a lot of really trashy reality TV that's not even intended to be funny, but I'm just like, oh, it's so absurd, the people are ridiculous. And I watch Vanderpump Rules. I'm watching Real Housewives of Rhode Island right now, or Love is Blind. Like these, I watch them with my friends and we just make stupid comments about these stupid shows. And that's kind of what I do for laughter. And as far as people, I would say I am completely fangirl obsessed with Jeffrey Asmus. I think he is incredible. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Actually, the name sounds. Oh, I've watched a few clips of his. Yeah, he is funny. I
Yes,
watch stand up in like clip form on social media
yeah,
at this point. Yeah,
yeah, me too for the most part. And I'm just like think that he is so brilliant because he's a history buff and I'm a history buff as well. So I like his ability to integrate history into his act without seeming pedantic. He doesn't seem like, oh, I'm better than everyone else. He really seamlessly weaves these random history facts in to his act, and it's just I love it. But yeah, I like him. I like Rory Scovel a lot. I like Mary Beth Barone. She's a comic up in New York. But yeah, those are kind of, and then Tina Fey, when I was growing up, I sort of like looked like, I mean, I don't now so much, but I had glasses and I had a haircut similar to hers, and people go, you look like Tina Fey. And I'm like, oh, you know,
I can see that. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
But, so yeah, I definitely felt, and like Sarah Silverman, I think any of like female comics,
Yeah,
just because I'm like, I'm never going to be Bill Burr. So I sort of like, I respect what he does, but I don't look to him for inspiration per se, if that makes
I
sense.
understand that. Yeah. Sarah Silverman's last special was phenomenal. That was
Yeah.
really about her dad, right? That was really good.
I wouldn't know any of them in order. As
Yeah,
far
it
as
was. I think it was within the past couple of years. I think her dad had passed away, and she basically did an hour, more like a one woman show. But she's always been great, so it's really
yeah.
funny. Um, these are the last two questions. Are you concerned with your legacy at all? And if so, how do you want to be remembered?
I don't know if I will have much of a legacy. I don't have much online presence, although I'm thinking about changing that. I do, and I don't know how far. And that's the thing. I don't. That's sort of exciting about comedy. You don't know where it's going to go. You can literally have one clip go viral that changes your life.
Hmm.
Or you can just, like you said, stay in the same bar showcases for the next 20 years or what have you, which is fine too. It's you. I think that fame is capricious, and you don't necessarily know what's going to take off and what's not. So I think you just have to be yourself and do what you like doing. And if people happen to love it, then great. But if not, then you have had a fun time, I guess, along the way. So yeah, I think I just would want people to think that I am funny, but also to maybe say, hey, like she said something about the world or society that resonated with me. I had something about having children, and I did that bit at a gig, and a girl came up to me and she was just like, oh, that resonated so much with me. And like a lot to me, that to be like, okay, somebody like because comics job often is to like put into words in a humorous way thoughts that people have but they can't express. So I felt that made me feel like, okay, I'm a real stand-up comic.
That's a really touching moment. That's nice. And you're exactly right. Yeah, that feels good
Yes.
when you can do that for someone. So last one, what would your younger self think about you now? What would your younger self think about this choice of stand-up comedy?
I think my younger self would probably be disappointed in every other aspect of my life, but I think my younger self would be so proud that I went back and did stand up, because how many people do that? How many people? I mean, I cannot tell you how many guys I've been on dates with who are like, "Oh, you do stand up? I'd love to. I'm always thinking of stuff to do stand up. I'd love to do it." I'm like, then do it. There's open mics all over the place. There's no barrier for entry for the ones around here. Just go and do it. So I just am so proud of myself for actually doing it.
That's great. And you should be.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
exactly right in everything you just said. Yeah,
Yeah,
just do it.
yeah, no offense to them, but yeah, I did. I'm just like, if it means that much to you, if you keep thinking about it, the worst that could happen is you do horror. Everyone does horrible at first, and even really seasoned comics. I've seen some of the seasoned comics around here who I really like and respect. You'll see them have a bad set every once in a while. It's just like you get over that, and the only way to get over that is to do it.
Yeah. If everyone didn't have bills to pay, we'd all be artists anyway, right?
Yes,
So that's
yeah,
all we want to do. So,
universal basic income.
yeah, let's get that going.
Right.
So, well, Ashley, Nimmo, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Is there
Thank you.
anything you want to share? Where can we see you next, and where can we find you?
So my Instagram is Ashley_Nimmo_comedy, but I mean, there's nothing going on there. I just shows, but like I said, I am thinking, I'm like, I need to start posting clips because I have some and I need to do that. It's just, I just worry because the internet is forever. Do you know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, if I
I
post
hear you.
something weird, anyway. Yeah. So there, and then my next show is on Friday at the Cava. I mispronounce it, Cava Lounge in Baltimore, which is it's a drink that's like non-alcohol relaxing or something. I'm not entirely sure, but
All right.
yeah, that's
Hey,
where I'll be on Friday night. So
awesome.
thank you so much for having me, though. I had a great time. I really appreciate it, and I think this is really cool that you're doing this. And maybe it'll inspire some people who are on the fence about doing comedy to do it, because they should. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Take care.
Yes, take care. All right, bye bye.
Bye bye.